Sean Pickett here with Sales Integrity. Thank you for stopping by the Sales Integrity Podcast. Today we continue our discussion on the topic of prospecting on purpose. So without further ado, let's get today's episode rocking and rolling. Welcome back to the Sales Integrity Podcast. I'm Sean Pickett, the founder and CEO of Sales Integrity, and your host for the Sales Integrity Podcast. Today, we discuss the unfair advantage of being first, specifically talking about prospecting by the numbers. So naturally, as I've been doing in the previous podcast, I'm going to introduce three stats, three bits of research that I found through conducting some research of my own out there. And then I'm going to provide three tips on how you can make use of that research. And this today's topic, again, specifically relates to the unfair advantage of being first. So in my research, I found a little bit of a study and some research that was conducted by Sales Benchmark Index. So the Sales Benchmark Index. And what they found is this. Your sales team has a 56% greater chance to attain quota if you engage buyers before they contact a seller. So again, let me repeat that. Your sales team has a 56% greater chance to attain quota if you engage buyers before they contact a seller. And again, the source is Sales Benchmark Index. The next bit of research builds on top of that. This was conducted by Forrester, and what they found is this. The first viable vendor to reach a decision maker and set the buying vision has an average close ratio of 74%. Again, the first viable vendor to reach a decision maker and set the buying vision has an average close ratio of 74%. The source is Forrester for that one. And then finally, the source for this last one is InsideSales.com. And what they found is 50% of buyers choose the vendor that responds first. Again, the source is InsideSales.com, and they found that 50% of the buyers, 50% of buyers choose the vendor that responds first. So there's a theme here, obviously. And this is what I'm referring to as the unfair advantage of being first. You know, he or she who is first will tend to win the business, and that research backs that up. So what I thought we'd do today is have me provide three tips along the lines of being first and you know, really recommending how you can best position yourself to be first, right? In order to be first, you need to connect with buyers, you know, right as they're getting ready to embark upon their buying journey or right before then, right? And so what I'm going to recommend in terms of these three tips is putting yourself in the best position to be first. So my first tip is pick up the phone and make phone calls. That's my very first tip, believe it or not. And the reason why is the whether you call it cold calling or anything else, I'm not even talking about cold calling. That's one element of picking up the phone. But the phone is a very useful tool. Most people mistake it and kind of think, oh, that's only for cold calling, but that's not the case. So many people are relying on email these days that they're forgetting that you should pick up the phone. And they don't think anyone's really, you know, answering the phone, or they're not going to connect with people that way. But you never know if you don't try. And a little bit of research here as I dug deeper, that was conducted by the Radicati Group. That's actually their name, the Radicati Group. What they found is that the average number of business emails received each day in 2017 is 92. So the average amount of business emails that everyone's receiving, including the executives, and they might even receive more that you're reaching out to, is 92 emails received each day. So it's quite easy to get lost in a sea of emails. Most people would think, hey, isn't that quicker just to send an email? But the problem with that is that you're sending an email and then you have to sit back and wait, right? And so you go into reactive mode. Picking up the phone is the ultimate proactive mode. And there's no faster way to get a hold of someone and get into a situation where you can positively influence them and move the process forward than picking up the phone. Not getting in a car, getting on a plane, because that takes travel time. Not sending an email, because now you got to sit back and wait for them to reply and hope that they found it within the 92 emails that they received. And a lot of times, you know, think of the emails you've received from people. People can misinterpret what an email really means, right? So what your intention may come across differently in an email, but there's no mistaking what someone's intention is when they're communicating with you verbally, right? So picking up the phone puts you in that fastest, best position to be first. So you could use it to call prospects. And of course, as it relates to cold calling, the days of cold calling where you're just kind of smiling and dialing and not doing the research and understanding who you're calling and carefully crafting some messaging that will resonate with them and knowing that you can help them for sure because you've helped others like them. Those days are dead. You've got to do all that research. You've got to make sure that you're well positioned to succeed if and when you do ultimately connect with people in a live conversation on the phone. But on the flip side, you can leave a voicemail. And again, a lot of sales professionals don't want to leave a voicemail. They feel like it's wasting a bullet and nobody really listens to it, but that's not necessarily true. Think about it. If an executive comes and sits down, they got 92 emails, yet their voicemail red light is blinking, they're more apt to listen to that voicemail first before they're going to sift through 92 emails, right? That's just too much detail, too much data, and they probably will have an executive assistant look through some of that and just kind of sift out the real emails of people they should care about, and they probably have folders set up with email rules that's just going to put it right in there, and they're going to go to that first anyhow. So most sales professionals don't want to leave voicemails. If they zig, then you should zag. Leave a voicemail, and again, you have a chance to positively influence and persuade because the sound of your voice is going to leave a lasting impression. And again, as long as you prepared, a message that will resonate and it makes sense for them, you have a better chance of connecting with them through a voicemail even than an email. But ultimately, if they answer the phone, you're immediately in a conversation with them versus you send an email and now you got to sit back and wait. So pick up the phone and make calls, not just for calling prospects, but call clients and ask for referrals. So that's another way. You research their LinkedIn network. You see who they're connected to that are similar contacts, similar executive types. You prepare your messaging for them and you call with a purpose to your clients and you ask for referrals. And then you can get a facilitated introduction, which will break down the walls of distrust faster because you're coming through someone they know and trust, and you'll get an audience quicker that way, and chances are you're going to put yourself in a better position to succeed. You could also pick up the phone to call networking partners, those people that you're directly connected to that not only that you know, but that know you, so they'd be willing to help you. So I'm not just talking about any random LinkedIn connection. I'm talking about networking partners that you've cultivated relationships with and developed over the years. They know you, they trust you, they'd be willing to help you, but you probably just haven't been asking enough. Do the same thing. Make sure you're prepared. Look through their LinkedIn network. Identify 3 to 5 contacts that would be good, ideal target market prospects that you want to reach out to and have them facilitate an introduction for you. So just keep that in mind. You picking up the phone, that's my tip number 1. Just start making outbound calls and be proactive as it relates to picking up the phone and doing that. That'll put you in a better position with prospects, clients who will refer you to prospects, and networking partners who will refer you to prospects as well. Tip number 2, be present physically. So this one has a lot to do with now jumping in a car and going to events. And that's why I put it number 2. It's not as good as number 1 because you can make faster progress if you're connecting with people on the phone. However, being present physically, meaning jumping in a car and going to events, that puts you in a physical position to now influence, persuade positively in person. So it's not only your voice, but you get the full element of interacting with human beings in a human-to-human environment, if you will. So be present physically. How do you do that? Well, there's a few different ways. Association meetings. So there are niche industry association meetings. Do some research, find out when their next meetings are, and these are ones that your target market end customer types would be in, and then make sure you can attend. Some of them are just for that role, some of them are more open-ended, IT related, software related, hardware related, data center related, cloud related, events where they have kind of a hodgepodge of customer prospect types and vendors and sales professionals and leaders and all that good stuff. So do some research, figure out where those association meetings are in your town, and get out there, get in person. You can connect with someone. Now you're establishing a relationship. They may not be ready to buy just yet, but when they are, now they can place a face with the name, feel a little bit more connected with you. And with their permission, you could even get them on your list. You can get connected with them on LinkedIn, and you start to provide quality content to them through that platform, for instance, or even ask them for permission to add them to your newsletter list or update them from time to time via email. So keep that in mind. Industry trade shows are very similar to that, but these might even be ones where you jump in a plane and go off to different industry trade show events that are kind of an annual type event, where association meetings are more monthly, for instance, or maybe even quarterly. So keep that in mind. Networking events. These are networking events with other strategic partners. Again, you're going to stay top of mind. Typically, you want to find those that meet maybe twice a month. Once every week's too much. Once a month is not bad, but twice a month tends to be the right frequency. So if you can find networking events that meet twice a month, go do that. If not, create your own. You can create your own networking event, host it, put it on Meetup, find people that way in your local town there, reach out through LinkedIn and find people that way that you want to meet with, and start building out your own strategic networking group that way. So you could do that, or just find those that exist and then go join those. And now you're meeting with like-minded peers that are selling on the same target market accounts, if you will. You guys can facilitate interest for each other, but you're going to build up relationships and trust through those frequent monthly touch points at those networking event meetings. And then even speaking events, research, if you're calling on senior executives, and especially top executives, they get asked every once in a while to speak at events. Find the ones that are more active like that. The way you can figure that out is go research them on Twitter. If they have a Twitter account, they're going to post quite a bit. You're going to get into the mind of that executive. A lot of times they'll post, hey, I'm speaking at this event, or as featured here. Those are great connection points there. But their next speaking event, go attend it and then go up and introduce yourself. That's a great way to connect with them as well. They'll be appreciative of that. So just keep that in mind. That tip number 1 is make phone calls, pick up the phone and make proactive outbound phone calls. Tip number 2 is be present physically at these various events. You can connect with people that way. That could put you in a better position to be first. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with tip number 3, conduct webinars. That's right. As a sales professional, you can control this. Conduct webinars. It's very easy. You can sign up for Zoom meeting. It's like $40 a month or something like that for the webinar platform. There's other webinar platforms that maybe are a little bit cheaper than that. But you can conduct webinars where you've already got a presentation, for your company and for your product, service, solutions. You can't make it a product demo, or you can't make it a sales presentation. Try and think of the top 3 to 5 challenges, or goals that your target market, ideal client profile, those types of individuals are facing in their role, and then create a webinar based on that, right? And then it could be, 5 to 10 PowerPoint slides and then a Q&A type session. And in case people don't ask questions, you want to come up with frequently asked questions you're getting from prospects and customers, and just kind of have that at the ready. If no one's asking them through the webinar software, you could start answering, here's some questions that were submitted to us previously, that were asked of us previously, that you may have as well. Read off the question, then you answer it. So you could still do a kind of a manufacturer Q&A session, but they're based on real questions. So keep that in mind. Plan ahead for that. But webinars are easy for executives to just jump on. Whether, at the comfort of their own desk, they don't have to jump in a car and go across town and try and make events like that. And it's a great way for you to hone your messaging as a sales professional. But the other really cool thing here is you can use that within tip number 1, making your outbound calls to prospects. It warms up the cold call. So if you call in and they have executive assistants or receptionists screening the calls, which a lot of them do, and they ask you what's this pertaining to, let them know that you're inviting them to an upcoming event. A lot of times you'll get put right through. I'm inviting him or her to an event specifically for CEOs. Just wanted to introduce myself real quick, let them know about that information, and see if they're able to attend, right? And so you'll come up with your messaging for that, but that's the truth then. If you schedule a webinar, a week out or 2 weeks out, and then you start making calls accordingly a week or 2 in advance to invite them to the webinar, yes, of course, you're going to send them an email with a link where they can register, or to their executive assistant with their permission. But it's best to call in ahead of time and invite them that way. So it's another excuse there. But you could also go promote that out on LinkedIn and on social to try and pick up webinar registrations that way as well, and pick up executives that way. So conducting webinars is great. And the other thing you should do with webinars is record it. Make sure you record it, because it becomes a tangible value asset you can use later to entice executives to sign up and retrieve that, or for you to send it as a follow-up. Hey, I conducted this webinar previously. You might find this beneficial. And all you need to do is schedule it for an hour, No more than that. Keep it real brief and succinct, and make sure it's very, very value-laden. You have tons of value in there in terms of ideas they can run with on their own, whether they choose to work with you or not, or raise their hand or not. What you'll get is a nice list of prospects that are signing up for the webinar that may not be ready yet, but you got there first, and now you're setting the buying vision. So just keep that in mind. So that'll wrap it up for today's webinar. Real quick summary of the unfair advantage of being first. Tip number 1, pick up the phone and make proactive phone calls. Tip number 2, be present physically at different events where you can connect with executives there. And tip number 3, conduct webinars and make sure they're very, very value-based. So that'll do it for today's podcast on the unfair advantage of being first. Now we're going to wrap up today's episode with a few quick reminders. All right. Reminder number 1, if you haven't signed up for our free 7-day video email course titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling, then you should do so right away. Go ahead and visit mastercomplexselling.com. Again, it's mastercomplexselling.com. Reminder number 2, if you want to ask a question and have me feature that on the podcast to answer your question, then just send an email to asksean@salesintegrity.com. Again, it's Ask Sean, and I spell it S-E-A-N. So Ask Sean at salesintegrity.com. Number 3, if you haven't already done so, please rate the show. If you've been listening a few times and you get a sense of what the show is about and you feel comfortable, I greatly appreciate a 5-star rating and a quick 1 to 2 sentence review. You could do so on iTunes. Just search for the show and then click the ratings and reviews and go ahead and just add it there. And then final reminder, if you haven't already joined one of our 2 B2B Tech Sales Professionals group, you could do so on either Facebook or LinkedIn. Just go ahead and search for B2B Tech Sales Professionals, and it'll pop up, and you can just join right there. So once again, thank you for listening to today's episode. Go out there today and help your customers buy what they want, what they need, and what benefits them. And most importantly, go out there and make it a great day.